Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 155 of the Strength Coach Podcast, the official podcast of Michael Boyle, StrengthCoach.com, the world's best source for strength and conditioning information. I'm your host, Anthony Renna, and we're located at StrengthCoachPodcast.com. Want to get in touch with me, shoot me an email to StrengthCoachPodcast@gmail.com. All right, for StrengthCoach.com members, we just added some great new content, including building the braking system, excellent one from Kevin Carr, another great one from Ben Bruno called Teaching the Single Leg Deadlift, and Coach Boyle has a warm-up from MBSC called, a lecture from the MBSC called Organizing a Warm-Up for Groups, about 10 minutes long, great stuff. That and much more. Remember, you can get 3 days for just $1 at StrengthCoach.com, and if you have a staff of 2 or more and you want to sign up as a group, we have a special membership offer for you, up to 50% off. Also, don't forget, Audible.com is giving Strength Coach Podcast listeners a special offer. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at freebookfromant.com. That's freebookfromant.com. Over 150 titles to choose from. All right, on the Coach's Corner, I spoke to Coach Boyle about some forum topics, including different angles on the slide board, boxing, conditioning, and the Ball Rotational Throw differences. That and much more coming up on the Coach's Corner in a little while. Aaron McGurr from Perform Better joins us to talk about the current sale, the active motion bar, and what's coming up in all of Perform Better's education. Lots of education coming up from them. All right, and for the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment, Elias Scarr is on to talk about creating the client experience. Good stuff from Elias. On the Hit the Gym with the Strength Coach, I have Robbie Bourke, frequent contributor, longtime contributor to the site, Irish-based strength and conditioning coach. He's also the author of the Ultimate Performance Seminar Series, and I talked to him about some topics in the series, including assessments, warm-ups, linear, multi-directional, and absolute speed, as well as how he's using HRV. Lots of great stuff from Coach Bourke. On the Art of Coaching with EXOS, Roy Holmes continues his series about the X's and O's of working with NFL athletes. Today he talks about building a successful off-season program. Lots of things to get to, so let's get on the phone with Coach Boyle. All right, now it's time for the Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Ian. How are you? Oh, Happy New Year to everybody out there.
All right.
Another year of StrengthCoach.com and Strength Coach Podcast, so it's pretty cool.
There we go. I know. Awesome. Coach, got some good threads on the forum. I actually have three topics today, all from the forum. One was really interesting. I don't completely understand everything about what the guy was trying to teach, and I think it was more about, and this is really coming from the original guy who posted. It was called Different Angle on a Slide Board, and the video was from Sparta Science and how they incorporate and teach the use of the slide board in training. For the most part, we've for the most part used it for conditioning, as well as, for example, the slide board leg curls. Some people use some different things for some different lunging patterns. But I haven't really seen what this guy was doing. I know you thought it was pretty interesting. Explain to people what you feel like he was trying to teach here on this, and what your thoughts were on it.
Well, it was funny. What I think he was trying to do was apply some lateral movement mechanics drills to the slide board, which my thing was just, it was interesting because I'd never seen anybody take it in that direction. And that's, I guess, a little bit of a play on words. You're talking about slide board. But the thing that I did like, and one of the things that we're probably going to do, I think we definitely have trouble teaching our kids initially how to slide board, how to get into the position, and what they want that push-off leg to look like. So I started thinking some of the stuff that he's doing, although I don't necessarily agree with it, I think can give you some interesting teaching progressions. Much like you said, like slideboard leg curl, I think there's some leg patterns, and it's interesting. So there's a guy that's teaching skating up here, and they do a lot of, I guess skating pattern is the best way to describe it, sort of. So you're sitting on that leg, almost in, say, a one-leg quarter squat, maybe even a half squat, and then you're kind of doing some patterns with the other leg, actually with the foot off the ground. But I just saw it's actually tagged in my my emails for staff meeting, next time we have a staff meeting, because I thought it was that interesting. It really is. It's kind of intriguing. It just got me thinking, maybe there is something here that we can do a little bit differently to make it. The biggest thing is to make that teaching progression better, to get somebody to slide board better sooner. I think for us, and this is what I said in the thread, it's still going to be a conditioning thing, and it's still going to be much more push leg oriented. Their orientation was definitely more on the leg that's kind of what we would consider you're riding on. You know what I mean? You're pushing and you're riding on that bent leg. So it was interesting. That's the best word I can come up with.
Yeah. One thing I don't know if I agree with you completely on something you said. I don't know if you were talking about the fact that, if you were questioning it as well, it looked like you put a question mark there. But in the hockey world, we use the board with square shoulders, as you don't want that torso rotation. Really, because there is torso rotation in the stride. And you have to, it's almost. I feel like it's almost similar, to any rotational sport where, like boxing, for example, there is some movement. The hips are moving that torso. So can you just kind of expand a little bit on the torso rotation?
Yeah, but I think they were really almost trying to square the shoulders up almost 90 degrees to the board, which
okay.
I guess, if nothing else, it would be really difficult it makes something that I think is hard to teach to begin with even more difficult to teach. Because the interesting thing about the slide board is that the slide board is very, very easy for strong athletes who are good skaters and pretty hard for everybody else, at least in that sort of initial going. So I just think we have to be a little bit careful, and we keep going back to that keep it simple idea, but that we don't get too complicated. But as I said, I do think for some of our other sport activities, one of the things that I remember was years ago, I had a tennis player who was struggling a little bit to learn to slide board. And as soon as I let her hold her racket, she became really efficient. And suddenly she was sort of, on her forehand side, she was reaching out with her forehand side. On her backhand side, she was reaching the racket across her body. So she was sort of, it was almost as if it was one arm rotational, very much like what a tennis player would do. And she looked completely comfortable. Whereas when I just had her going sort of side to side like a skater, like a speed skater, she looked completely uncomfortable. So I do think we've got to look at it a little bit more in terms of, okay, who do we have? Even for us with our basketball players, we'll have a tendency to try to get our basketball players to open the hands up and to not use the hands at all, because we want them to kind of mimic where they're going to be defensively. And so I think you could look at everybody and make something like the slide board a little bit more sports specific. Like I said, as you get rotational athletes. And again, you think about hockey, we've done it. We have people who do it with a stick in their hand, but interestingly enough, and you play most of the time, they'll simply reach the stick out in front of them. They'll hold the stick by the shaft, because that's one of the things that skating coaches will tell you all the time. If you want to go fast, one hand on the stick. So I think you're looking at different sort of situational uses of the board too, in terms of, are we thinking sort of straight ahead speed? Are we thinking more change direction? It's interesting. I was very, like I said, I don't usually watch something and think, wow, that really makes me think. And that was the feeling that I got when I watched that clip.
Yeah, I just felt like with the rotation that he was doing, it was just, I felt like he was just trying to exaggerate it. So, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, it was definitely, certainly would have people who had restrictions who would in no way be able to do that. But, all right, good stuff. Coach, there was Ray McCarthy brought up some stuff about boxing conditioning that I thought was interesting. And then you had said, he wanted to know how people were kind of training boxers or conditioning boxers. You said you train a lot of fighters. You follow a pretty conventional path. We use bike and slide board, get plenty of on their feet time as they get plenty of on their feet time. And when you begin with 3-1 and 2-1 rest to work intervals, boxing is one of the few times we might progress to 1-1, as most combat sports are negative rest to work ratio sports. We still would not seek to duplicate this as above. The approach, they get it in their boxing training. So you're feeling like, because they're getting it in their boxing training, there's that idea of filling buckets that you don't really need to work as much on the conditioning with them?
Exactly. Or I think if you're going to work on it, it's a little bit higher intensity interval with more rest, because that's what they don't do. Because I think, again, those guys, they're they're usually pretty fit. If you think about kind of the cardiac output kind of world, lots of 120 to 150 and maybe even higher with very, very little rest. But their ability to do things with a really high quality and a bigger rest, I think, is going to be much better, much more significant. So this is just what we've done. Because in general, with most sports, we very rarely get beyond 1-to-1. We do if we get longer intervals. Sometimes when we get minute and 2-minute intervals, we will do 1-to-1. But when we're doing 15s and 30s, it would tend to, it would be rare that we do 15-15 or 30-30. We would do more 15-45, 31-minute, 20-40, that type of stuff. So we're in the 2-to-1, 3-to-1 kind of range for most conventional team sports. But just knowing that, and it was the same thing. There's another one talking about the strength training part too, and I think it's the same thing. Because we're doing a lot of circuits, and even though he said Dewey was doing that, which made me think, I wonder why. I think sometimes trying to be imitative is that sort of overfilling the wrong bucket idea in my mind.
Okay, yeah, good stuff. I like that you were talking about, getting sneaky with the boxers. So, doing the circuits, kind of giving a little bit of the sizzle with the steak, kind of doing the circuits with a good strength bias. And I think that's an important thing for a lot of us to remember is that, we could still kind of get, for us who are training general population with, like for me, for example, with golfers, it's still a specific sport, but these are people that are, for the most part, are not, they're just, crazy avid golfers who are trying to get better. And certainly have an idea of how they should be trained as well. They're educated people, but so I will throw in, I do a little bit of circuit training, but yeah, we make sure we get in all the good strength movements in there, and it's not a race against the clock. So you were talking about doing, one leg squats, one leg SLDL, chin ups, throwing some core in, very similar to what I'll do for my Saturday morning class. I like what you called a stealth strength workout. So good stuff.
Yeah, and I think that works in any of the sports, like I said, golf, soccer, boxing, martial arts. People that don't want to strength train, that think maybe still have a little bit of a bias, the sense that, hey, I don't want to get too big, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that kind of stuff. So that really works well for them.
Absolutely. Coach, let's move on. Another one, final one, was the med ball rotational throws difference. And somebody had asked you, Coach, which one do you use? Do you use both? It was one, the rotational throw where you're facing the wall, and then one where you're perpendicular to the wall. And I guess you had said that you don't use the one facing the wall. But my question to you was, you said you use the perpendicular one because you don't really find the other one. We don't do the other one except maybe rugby, which you thought about later. But my question would be, who cares about that? Because we're not really trying to mimic sport. And then, somebody else had asked, will it still improve rotational power? And you said, yes, it will. Both will. Is this a case of one being just that much better than the other? Or because if you feel like both will improve rotary power and they are both a little bit different, can you just kind of expand on this idea of those two different throws?
Yeah, I think I don't like the sort of, I guess what we would call parallel to the wall, where your feet are actually perpendicular, but your body is parallel. And I don't like that because I think it sometimes makes people over-rotate a little bit trying to do it. But so we've gotten away from it. I thought Devin's point was really good, though, when you start thinking about hockey and particularly single leg. And we have done some of that in years past, and I've kind of gotten away from it. So I think that's one of those. That was another one. That was kind of a good reminder for me that, hey, this may have a place. We haven't used it. I guess because I train so much baseball and hockey now that you just think that side position, that side throw, makes way too much sense because it looks like pitching. It looks like batting. It looks like slap shot. It looks, you know what I mean? Even golfing, it has a much more appearance of carryover. So I think if we're going to do rotation, that's the way to go. But the flip side, as you mentioned, and as a couple of guys, Devin and somebody else mentioned in the thread, there may be a place for that other one. So I have to think about that when we get back to our next training phase. And I think particularly when we get to our summer hockey phase, I think we definitely want to get that back in, because we've got to be able to shoot sort of forehand, backhand, greater than that kind of stuff, as opposed to just thinking about slap shot velocity, which I think is what I'm always thinking about a little bit more when we're in that side, what would be the perpendicular position. So shoulders perpendicular to the wall.
Yeah, I'll use the one leg throw with the one that where the feet are parallel to the wall, the one that I called perpendicular, the one that you said is better, or that one that you feel you do more of. We do one throw because we're trying to create in the golf swing a lot of lower body stability. So we'll use that left foot. We'll start out with the left foot and really focus on the backswing, because when you follow through really fast, you're just going to lose your balance because the back foot's just a kickstand. But it creates a lot of stability, and it allows, kind of teaches somebody to really understand that separation. And then when we go to the left foot, we'll do a big backswing with the big follow through, a really fast follow through. Again, so it's creating some stability on the left side. I just don't, and I've probably said this a bunch of times on here, I don't like something like the one facing, because I think there's too much hip drive, and it might sound funny, but in golf there's a swing fork or a leg extension or hip thrust, and I feel like it will promote that. I want them to understand that they've got to keep that butt back, so I won't use that, but definitely interesting.
Well, I guess that's the same idea with hockey. When you think about, we're almost always shooting in that sort of parallel position where the shoulder's perpendicular to the wall, the feet parallel. That's something that we would be using really frequently. So it's but again, I look at it and think it's a good reason to have another rotational throw that's there. So I think it's, like I said, it's going to be a good reminder for me.
All right, good stuff. Coach, maybe next time we will talk to you about some of the stuff when you present it to at the meetings, et cetera, and see where you're at with this. So anyway, have a happy new year, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right, thanks, Ant. I'll see you soon.
All right, now it's time for the Ask the Equipment Experts with Perform Better. I'm here with Erin McGurr. Erin, thanks for coming on. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, as always, thanks for coming on. Well, let's get right into it. What's the sale right now?
The sale right now, we are having free shipping on orders over $49. So really all orders going ground that are over $49 will get free shipping. We also have some sale items. We have jungle gyms, banana steps, jump ropes, EVA rollers, aerobic bars. All that stuff is between 20 and 25% off. We also have things like Eric's pads, folding gym mats, stackable steps, TheraBands. Those are all about 15% off. And again, all those with the discount also apply for free shipping. So it's a good time. I know I always say to double dip, but I would definitely take full advantage of it.
All right, awesome, good stuff. Well, let's jump right into the Perform Better Functional Training Institute, because we talked about it. You guys opened it in the fall. You had a few good workshops. It looks like you guys are taking it to another level, though. I know this, it's too late by the time the podcast comes out, but you have FMS Level 2 coming up this weekend, but you guys are doing original strength, PRI. It looks like a hip function one, which I haven't looked into yet. You're doing a Coach Boyle Certified Functional Strength Coach certification, an EXOS mentorship phase 1. Talk to us about some of the upcoming events going on at the Perform Better Functional Training Institute.
Well, like you said, we did start it in the fall, but 2015 is really going to be kind of when it takes off. We have something going on every month, actually more than one thing going on every month. We have about 21 to 22 seminars planned, so they filled up quick just in regards to what we're having. I know you mentioned a couple of them in FMS Level 2, Original Strength Certification, PRI with Mike Mullen. Evan Osar's coming in for doing thoracic link to improving hip function. We have Josh Hinken doing a kettlebells and sandbag one. We have Mark Toomey coming back in June to do another kettlebell one. The Cosgroves are doing a business seminar. Mike Boyle's doing a couple other Strength Coach 5.0s and his Functional Strength Coach certification. So we have so many different things going on. The best part is that I know at the summits and at the one days, and I talked about this before, we focus a lot of times on just broad topics and, personal trainers and strength coaches, athletic trainers, and it's more of an overall type of thing. But now we get to get into specifics and really, focus more on business or focus more on just kettlebells or just body weight. So it's great that we finally have the opportunity to do that. And it looks like just with everything we have planned for 2015, we're finally getting the opportunity to do it. So I know we're really excited, and we're trying to keep the price point low for everything. So in addition to the summits and the one days that we do have, it is something different that we look forward to. So we can get into more specifics and more details and hopefully get more people's interest to find out what they're looking for.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, schedule's looking good right now, so looking forward to some of that stuff. Let's talk about a product. What do you got for me?
Well, the one thing I've been getting some questions on, and I think it's a really cool product. We actually have some here in the gym at Perform Better. It's a new product we got in the summer. They were out at the summits, and it is the Active Motion Bars. And what it is, it comes in 5 different weights, and all the bars are 60 inches long. They're all made in the U.S., in case anyone is wondering. But inside the bars, it's a metal bar, and inside of it, I know there's, slosh tubes and aqua bags and aqua balls and things like that. It looks similar to a body bar, how it's just a straight bar with end caps. But inside, there's actually steel weights that glide. So when you move the bar side to side, you can hear them move, and you can actually feel them move. So the momentum that you have generated will actually shift the weights inside. So you're activating your core, you're challenging strength, flexibility, and it's really something different. It's something that if you want to work on balance, you can keep the bar level and quiet, so there's not a lot of velocity, and you can really start to, feel how your body moves. And eventually when you start doing more challenging movements, you can start to engage muscles that you may not activate as much. So when you do incorporate momentum, velocity, and resistance, you really start to feel how your body works and react that way. So it's cool because you can kind of add another dimension, and it really challenges, like I said, core stability, strength, flexibility, things like that. And when you incorporate it to a basic squat or a basic lunge or bending or twisting, so it helps you really feel the way your body's moving, helps with balance, great for posture. And you can feel, if you're stronger on one side or weaker on the other, it kind of gives your body that feedback while you're still doing strengthening stuff. So I like it. I think it's great. We actually did some balance work using the True Form Runner on it, which sounds completely strange, but it was really good to find your center of gravity and kind of start from there.
That's awesome. I know, as you know, I always love all of these different kind of aqua bags and slosh and sandbags and any kind of movable weight. I love that stuff. Just give us a rundown on really quick on what are the weights with these?
It starts at 6 pounds. It goes 6, 8, 10, 15, and 18. So it's nothing too crazy, nothing too heavy. But again, you're always going to be adding it to another exercise. It's something where if you're challenging yourself and doing different movements, and like I said, when you want to get a little crazy and start adding momentum and adding velocity to this, you don't want to go too heavy. So those are the 5 weights. Again, they're all 60 inches long, and I like them. It's great for feedback, and it's something different, and they won't break up and spill water all over the place.
All right. Cool. E, thanks so much for coming on today and giving us the rundown, and we'll talk to you next week.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Hello, this is Roy Holmes for the Art of Coaching with EXOS API, and today we're going to continue our conversation about the X's and O's of training the NFL athlete. Today, I would like to turn our attention towards building a successful off-season program. Training is defined as an action of teaching a person a particular skill or behavior, whereas a workout is defined as a session or a vigorous exercise that will test one's physical ability. As simple as that may sound, this may be the most overlooked aspect when working with NFL athletes. The NFL season consists of 256 games where each team will play 16 games during a 17-week period, not including preseason games or playoffs. When we think about these numbers, we gain a greater understanding of the magnitude of the NFL season and the toll that it has on the bodies of the athletes that play it. When putting together an NFL offseason program, we have to understand their schedules first and our schedules second. Due to practice schedules, league rules, and where a team may finish at the end of the season will determine when a player enters our program. At EXOS, we divide our offseason into 3 phases: remodeling, pre-OTA prep, and preseason prep, with each phase having a defined goal and outcome for our athletes participating in the program. Looking over each phase, we use our remodeling phase as a point in time where we're mainly trying to give back to our players' bodies. We're not looking for major speed and strength gains, but more gains in mobility, flexibility, and overall feeling better from the damage that occurred during the season. During phase 2, which is pre-OTA prep, we're looking to improve the true aspects of strength and conditioning. The reason why I say this like that is because due to the new rules of the NFL, the likelihood of a player training at our facility compared to training with their strength and conditioning coach will be pretty high. With this said, we have to do our best when prepping our athletes for OTAs and mainly concentrating on size, speed, and strength because our players' exposure to us is going to be a lot greater than their actual team strength coach. Also, this is a point in time when we begin to implement position-specific work and more sports-specific type movement sessions. The main reason for this is because we may have guys who have entered our program as early as January and may not have spent much time working on their position fundamentals. Our last phase is preseason prep phase, where normally this is the shortest but the most high volume due to the players looking for focus on conditioning because of their team requirements. Taking a step back, I would like to look at the implementation of position-specific work. Too often we see sessions that are all position-specific and not technique-specific. What we have to understand are a few things before implementing position-specific work into a session. Who is in the group? Are there defensive backs training with offensive and defensive linemen? Is there enough of a technical base to build upon with sport-specific movements? Do we have the space and the appropriate equipment to execute position-specific work? The secret sauce is being able to find movements that are most specific to all position groups and ones that translate over to give each group when you're working with a mixed bunch. For example, I can take a standard W pattern and modify that movement for each position group, where linemen can execute kick steps or pass rushes, linebackers can work on drops, defensive backs can work on breaking on the ball, quarterbacks can work on 3- and 5-step drops, receivers can run routes, and running backs can work on jump cuts, and so on. This is an excellent bonus to have as a part of our off-season program but it cannot happen without weeks of pre-planned technical work. NFL athletes are good, but what makes them great is being able to overcome the small mistakes. A bad angle, a poor body position could be the difference between a guy staying on the team or giving up a touchdown or getting cut. I once had a coach tell me, it is the little things that the winners do that losers find too uncomfortable to do. This is a powerful message because we see stories all the time about the great players in the league. And when we look at it, it always comes down to the small intangibles that define their career. That is it for today. If you want to learn more about EXOS, please visit us at www.teamexos.com for more information or shoot me an email at rholmes@teamexos.com.
Hey gang, Elias Scarr here. Thanks for tuning into the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment on the Strength Coach podcast. Today I want to talk to you guys about creating the experience. Really, what are your clients experiencing when they come into the door? What are your prospects experience when they come into the door? Now, getting great results is a huge part of retention, a huge part of sales and establishing your authority as a coach and as a business. But It's the experience that people come back for again and again and again. And what we really have to do is change our paradigm of thought and think less like a fitness industry and more like the hospitality industry. How are theme parks doing it? How are hotels doing it? How are restaurants doing it? What is that experience that makes people want to go back again and again and again and again and again? So recently I had the opportunity to attend a friend's wedding at Disneyland, and it was fantastic. We were there for the rehearsal dinner the night before. And at the day of the wedding, I thought I'd love to get up early, about 5 o'clock in the morning, and head down to downtown Disney and watch them prep the park. And what I saw was absolutely amazing. They had their entire staff and maintenance staff was putting so much effort into making sure that everything was spotless and clean. And then around 6 o'clock in the morning, the music with classic Disney songs started to blare louder and louder. And then staff came out with Mickey Mouse gloves and to greet people as they were coming around. And really what Disneyland is professionals at is what I like to call the turn. That moment where that customer or that prospect turns around and sees them for the very first time, that very first initial impression. It had their clients and the people before they even got in the park into such a fervor and going so crazy that kids were tripping and falling over themselves, running into the gate or running forward to try and get into Disneyland. Now, obviously, I'm not saying you need to dress like Mickey Mouse as you greet your clients at the door, but that initial impression is so important. So try and think about what experiences you've had and anytime dealing with the hospitality community, and why do you want to go back? What is it about that place that makes you want to go back? For me, for Disneyland, it was the energy and the excitement. Another great example is a brand new hotel in San Francisco, the Hotel G, had little chocolate hammers made to excuse their construction. So they took their situation, regardless of what they were dealing with, being under construction, and turned it into an experience. Even just the fact that there may be debris here, or any worries that the prospect may have that, oh, it's going to be loud, there's going to be construction, there's going to be stuff in the way, it may not be clean. All that's dashed away when they use that time to create an experience and give out these little chocolate hammers that say, pardon our mess as we renovate and create a better experience for you. The last one I want to share is my wife and I had dinner at Roy's Hawaiian, which is a great Hawaiian fusion restaurant. And from the start to the end, it was such an incredible experience. One of the things they did really well was when we got out of the car, the valet asked my name for the reservation number. I said, it's a Scarr, party of two. And he said, Mr. and Mrs. Scarr, nice to see you. Then called it into his radio. As we went into the door, the host referred to us as Mr. and Mrs. Scarr. Then the manager, when he introduced himself, and the server, when he introduced himself, referred to us as Mr. and Mrs. Scarr. Simply by spreading our name through the restaurant like wildfire, we felt like we were treated really, really special. Like it was important that we specifically were there. It's those kind of experiences that really set you apart from the fitness industry, set you apart from anything else and everybody else, and really give you the opportunity to be different. You're not competing with Golds or 24-Hour Fitness because you're creating an entirely different experience with everything that you provide to your clients. So take the time to do that. One of the things that we do at Results Fitness is we greet our clients at the door. We make sure that everybody knows their name. We greet our clients, our prospects at the door. Make sure that everybody that's coming into the gym or everybody that's in the gym, coaches included, knows that a prospect is coming in the door and knows who that person is. It also gives us the opportunity to put a reserved sign on the table. So when they come in for their sales and we come in for their initial appointment in their strategy session, they know that table is reserved for them. We're creating the experience right out of the gate. So what are you doing in your business to create a unique experience that people can't get anywhere else? They have to come to you for. So thanks for listening. For more awesome content like this, check us out on resultsfitnessuniversity.com. Go to our live events page and check out our upcoming Business Secrets Revealed mentorship on March 10th through 12th, 2015, and take advantage of our early bird registration before it expires. Thanks for listening. All right, guys, have a killer day and close some sales.
All right, now it's time for the Hit the Gym with the Strength Coach. And today I have longtime StrengthCoach.com contributor, definitely a friend to the site, and Irish-based strength and conditioning coach, Robbie Bourke. Robbie, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks a million for having me on, Anthony.
All right, because of your accent and because I have no idea what you people do across the pond, why don't you give us an idea of you're a little bit about your background, about where you're working right now. I know you work with a team and you do some stuff on your own. Give us an idea about what you're doing right now.
Well, since I interned at Boyle 6 years ago, I've always tried to speak slower and louder particularly for my American friends. So I'll do my best. So, but if I do kind of start to mumble, you just let me know. Based in Dublin, Ireland. I'm a strength and conditioning coach, mainly working with the traditional Gaelic games here in Ireland. So hurling would be the main sport I work in. I've also worked in Gaelic football. So for the listeners or the international listeners who don't know what those sports are, I would just encourage you to YouTube them and watch them. And it's always hilarious for us Irish people to show international people our sports because they just think they're crazy, particularly hurling. Like if you can imagine a cross between lacrosse and baseball, but there's no like padding involved, and a very, very hard baseball like ball just being hit around at like 120 miles an hour. You kind of to get a little bit of a taste for it. But that's the main sport I'm involved in is hurling. I'm also a certified neuromuscular physical therapist in the States. That would make me a manual therapist. And I'm also a functional medicine practitioner and a precision nutrition coach, but mainly stick mostly to strength and conditioning. I kind of delve into the other fields just to broaden my knowledge so that it'll kind of help me have a better sort of perspective on coaching and how to develop my athletes. So that's mainly where I'm at right now. We're, as I said, based in Dublin and working with a team called Nafina. That's the team I'm involved with and been involved with those for the last 6 years.
Nice. And I know that, you obviously are heavily influenced by Coach Boyle, as well as, Mark Verstegen, Charlie Weingroff, Greg Cook. And I see your influences in basically anybody would see that in your latest product, Ultimate Performance Seminar Series. It's an online video streaming series with, I don't even know how many lectures, 20 hours altogether, right?
Yeah, just under 20 hours.
Okay, so you did this over 4 different days, and there's lectures to go with practicals. I really like the way you broke this up because, and I think it's easier probably to do nowadays with the video streaming instead of getting a bunch of DVDs. But you have all these topics really kind of segregated, which is kind of cool. From your lecture and practical on the FMS to the corrective strategies on the FMS, some of the other performance testing. So just give us an overview of how you structured the Ultimate Performance Seminar Series.
Yeah, well, I wanted to make it as user-friendly as possible. A type of product you can just dip in and out of, watch a lecture here or watch a lecture there. Because you kind of, with a DVD, it's a little harder to navigate. So, and as you said, most people are kind of going to streaming now. But the way essentially it's broken down is the topics we covered were the FMS corrective strategies, performance testing, warm-up protocols, explosive and elastic jumps, hop, bounds, and medicine ball throws, and then linear multi-directional speed, and then finally heart rate variability. And with all those topics, there was both a lecture component and a practical component. And we broke each one of those areas into like separate videos on the website. So again, people can just dip in and out, watch a lecture on linear acceleration, and then they could go watch the practical then on linear acceleration. So that's kind of how we structured it, and I was very happy with how it turned out. And it's great to get feedback from you saying that you felt that the structure of it was well put together.
Yeah, I like that. And, I think, too, with our kind of ADD society, we do we look at something, we want to kind of jump a little bit ahead. And what I like about that, too, is that, you could be kind of just getting into the field, or you could be more advanced, or maybe the FMS doesn't apply to me and I want to look at, your linear speed stuff. So I definitely like the way you did it. But let's jump into a couple of these topics. So I don't want to get too much into FMS, the actual FMS, but I do want to ask you about your corrective, because again, you have different influences again between Charlie Weingroff, Coach Boyle, Greg Cook, plus you're basically like a manual therapist. Talk to us your strategy, your approach to the corrective strategies.
Very heavily influenced by the Secret series, to be honest, that Gray did with Lee Burton and Brett Jones. And, I got that Secret series when I was a young coach, like about 6 years ago. I watched it and completely went over my head. I was like, what is this? I've no idea what's going on here. And it was only when I took FMS 2 good few years back, and I saw the manual. I'm like, this manual is the script of Secret Series, and it kind of broke everything. Like, oh, this is where this goes and that goes, and so it completely just clicked. It was like a light bulb moment. And ever since that day, my corrective strategies for the FMS just were so much better in terms of their application and the results I was getting. So very influenced from the Secret Series, and it's nothing new to people that know the FMS. I use the basic structure of the corrective strategies, make sure we have mobility first, lock it in with stability, go from static to dynamic, and then go into some sort of pattern that complements that movement pattern. So that's essentially it. Now I've been able to kind of go a little bit deeper with my manual skills. So like sometimes I'll use maybe dry needling. Sometimes for a mobility fix I might use a muscle energy technique. I might use a breathing strategy from DNS. Depending on the individual, it really depends. But it's very much driven from the Secret Series in terms of the FMS correct strategies. Then with regards to some more mobility fixes, I utilize some of my skills from manual therapy.
Okay, yeah. So basically you're just using the Secret Series as your foundation, and then you've thrown in some of the newer stuff on top of that. Obviously, if it doesn't work for one person, you're going to have to try something else.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Talk to us a little bit about when you say performance testing, what are some things that you include, and give us an idea of what you're looking for?
Well, I'm very influenced too by Al Vermeil, and Al has this brilliant hierarchy called his Oolitic development hierarchy, and I essentially adapted that a little bit to suit my sort of thought process. So essentially for the listeners, it's kind of hard maybe to visualize, but hierarchy is generally generally a pyramid. And my hierarchy has all these has all these levels to it. And at the very foundation, you have your nutrition, your sleep and circadian cycles, your lifestyle, and then like your mental, emotional, and spiritual outlook in life. And then on top of that is your movement quality. On top of that would be your work capacity. On top of that would be things like body composition, optimization, then hypertrophy, and then getting into areas that people would definitely know. Then we're getting into max strength development, explosive strength development, elastic reactive strength development, and then finally we're getting into areas like linear speed development, and then finally multi-directional speed. So at the very pinnacle of that hierarchy really would be linear absolute speed. Like that's the very highest quality we could ever attain as humans. So with the performance testing lecture, once I explain that hierarchy, the question is, well, what are objective measures for everything on this hierarchy? So how do I know if my athletes have good work capacity? How do I know what good body composition is for my athletes? Now, people listen to this know the answers to most of this stuff. We may use different measures, but that's what we need to start asking. Like, how do I know if my athletes have good strength? How do I know if they have good rate of force development? How do I know if they're elastic and reactive? How do I measure their linear speed? How do I measure their multi-directional? So the performance testing lecture was just like saying, right, here are the objective testing criteria that I use for every single quality and biomotor quality on this hierarchy, and it then informs me where a certain individual needs to focus their training. So, for instance, like we know this too, like with the hierarchy. If you have somebody who says, "Coach, I want to get faster," and like this guy doesn't move well, he's poor work capacity and he's weak, and this guy's like, "Should I do all these speed drills?" You're like, no, let's. You're putting the cart before the horse. Let's sort out a few of these things first. So right, this guy has to move better, he has to build some basic foundation, and he's got to get stronger. So the performance testing again just looks is just helping us to get some objective baselines for all those qualities essentially on that hierarchy.
All right. Well, let's move into your warm up. I want to talk a little bit about your structure of your warm up, and before that, I do have one question I want you to answer first. You spend a lot of time on the foam roll stuff, on the self-myo release strategies. And, we do get a lot of controversy over, whether the foam roll works or, it's no good or it's great. Some people love it. But I felt like you taken the foam roll to another level, even though, and you said it too, I say this to everybody all the time, there's really no wrong way to do it. Just get on there and kind of work it out, and you'll figure it out sometimes. But you seem to take another level. You have something called, I guess, the pin and stretch, right? Tell us, a little bit about your thoughts on this, and because I know you're up to date with everything, and I know you've seen that resistance to the foam roll. It seems like obviously you still believe in it, and you've kind of worked in it in a little different way. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, With the foam roll, and the pin and stretch, I have to give credit to Nicole Rodriguez from Atlas Performance. She was the one that kind of showed me that. And actually, Jamie Rodriguez showed it to me as well a few years back as well, and kind of Nicole just reminded me about it. But foam rolling, like there is some controversy out there about it or not. Like, simple as this, like I would just say to an individual, test, then do the intervention retest. So if I test someone's range of motion on something, like, basically if I was to look at a Thomas test and I knew that what was wrong with them was a tissue extensibility dysfunction, and then if I did some manual technique, now let's just say we did foam rolling as the intervention, then we went back and retested and it got better. That's basic science right there, in that like I got a baseline, I did an intervention and it changed. That's not to say that foam rolling is for everybody. And I had this conversation with a guy called Dr. Quinn Henoch from Juggernaut Systems, and I also discussed this with a few other of my physical therapy friends, is that foam rolling can be very stressful to some individuals and it might be so stressful to other individuals. I kind of look at therapies now through the kind of sympathetic and parasympathetic lens, and most of us in strength coach have heard these terms before. If you have a very sympathetic individual, foam rolling could actually make them worse. It's like, oh God, this is the worst thing ever, please stop. And it actually makes their range of motion and their whole movement quality worse. They may do better with just some breathing exercises to calm down the whole system. Whereas you get your more parasympathetic, rugged kind of football guys, like they're like, oh, give me a PVC pipe, dig into that. Like they're more parasympathetic and they need that kind of more sympathetic stress. So I wouldn't be on here saying that I think foam rolling works necessarily for everyone. What I will say is, though, that for the people that do use it, they usually use it poorly, in that they just, as you say, get on it and they just roll. And the whole point in the video trying to make was, guys, we're going to foam roll here. We actually use PVC webbing pipes. But I was like, I know you guys think you know how to roll, but you don't. Like, no one does it. Everyone just gets on it. I do it too. And you just fly through for a minute. And it's just like, I wouldn't say it's pointless, but you could get so much more benefit out of it if you are a person who will get a benefit from it. So the techniques I showed were just those pin and stretch, two up, one down. And to be honest, they're all from EXOS, so they're not mine. So throughout the whole sort of seminar, I always gave credit to where credit was due. I never claimed anything. I don't think there's any original thought in this product. It's kind of taking the best from everyone and putting it together. But that was the take on the foam rolling. Nice.
Give us the structure though of your warm up. I know you did foam roll and then got into joint by joint stuff and a little bit of kind of getting into more of what AP does. So give us that structure of your warm up.
Yeah, I'm very OCD in that, like, I struggle to keep things simple. And I struggle to always give black and white answers, because there is no black and white answers in anything, very rarely. Usually the answer for everything is it depends. So on the course, I was trying to just expose people to the most amount of different warm-up protocols possible. So I actually utilize more so, it's kind of like an integration of kind of Mike's warm-ups with AP. Personally, myself, I rarely do any mini band type stuff in the warm-ups because it just doesn't suit my logistics, because we're mostly outside in the pitch and it's cold here in Ireland. So guys don't like to be putting on bands and doing doing kind of the glute activation stuff that AP would always do. But my warm-ups generally it would consist of some type of FMS correct strategy. We would usually do that inside in the facility and then go outside, and we'd usually do a linear multi-directional warm-up that would be very based off sort of Mike and AP. But in the warm-ups on the seminar series, I just brought people through the self-myofascial release, and then I showed them a joint by joint warm-up that didn't take up a lot of room, because there's times in my facility where I have to train like 200, I was about to say, but never, like 22 players in a very small area, like 800 square feet, and like I have to get them all warmed up in like the smallest place possible. So I kind of just show this warm-up that I've utilized over the years that respects joint by joint and takes literally no more than like probably 1 meter by 2 meter space per player. So I show that as well, and then I just show them, look, here's some EXOS warm-ups that I like to use with my athletes too, because Anthony, like if you have a client or a team in my situation and you're using the same warm-ups all the time, they get bored of it. So like, I might utilize a kind of Boyle linear multi-directional for a few weeks, and then when the weather gets a bit warmer, I might utilize more of the AP stuff, because the AP stuff is a little more in place. I don't find it's as conducive to winter conditions. It's a little bit too static for winter here in Ireland. I like to get my guys moving a little quicker in the winter. So I just showed a different array of my warm-up protocols. But usually I'll just go with some sort of corrective strategy based off FMS principles. Then depending if it's a linear multi-directional day, I'll go into that. And then we finally go into like our, the plyo, med balls, and then our speed work.
All right, awesome. Well, let's get into that. The explosive elastic component that is next. Talk to us about your thoughts on this and where you get most of your influence from.
Definitely my biggest influence on this type of stuff. Mike obviously definitely being one, but the more I've kind of studied over the years, I really start to get more of appreciation for the finer points of plyometrics, if you want to use that as the kind of broad general term. But I suppose Al Vermeil was a huge influence, and Charlie Francis would have been a big influence. Verkhoshansky's stuff would have been a big influence. And as we said before we went on to the interview here, like you'd often hear people say plyo med ball, and like they'll show a box jump or like some type of non-counter movement jump, and really a true plyometric utilizes the stress shortening cycle. And even like the truest plyometric is something that utilizes the stress shortening cycle and also mainly utilizes the elastic components of our tissue. That is really a true plyometric. So like non-counter type, jumps or hops or bounds aren't really the truest forms of plyometrics. So, but with Al's work, he would kind of break down, and with Charlie Francis and also Athletes Performance, I have to give them credit too. They would break down their jumps and hops and bounds and throws into non-counter movement, counter movement, kind of a double contact, stabilized, double contact, continuous. And it kind of, with Al and with Charlie, depending on what you were focusing on, like if it was acceleration, you would focus more so on like non-counter, counter movement type activities, because they correlate a little more to starting and accelerating strength. Whereas if you're focusing more on linear absolute speed, you would utilize more kind of elastic type activities, so like a double contact stabilized, a double contact continuous, and you'd utilize that both with not only with just like your jumps and hops and bounds, but also with your medicine ball throws too. So very much influenced by Al Vermeil, Charlie Francis, and also EXOS to a huge degree as well.
All right, good stuff. Well, you spent a lot of time on speed in this series. The next three parts are linear acceleration, and then you get into multi-directional speed, and then absolute speed. Let's just break it down a little bit. Just give us an overview right now of linear acceleration, because you did spend a lot of time with two lectures on that.
Yeah, and the reason for that was because the audience I was with, I felt they needed me to kind of go over that second time, and there was certain things I felt I could have explained better, said better. So that's why we kind of just did a two-part in acceleration. And it's funny, like, because I wouldn't have a major track background, even though my first mentor was a track athlete, Martina McCarthy. She actually ran in for Ireland in the Sydney Olympics in the year 2000. So she would have a massive track background. And then my biggest influence with multi-directional is Nicole Rodriguez and Lee Taft. So Nicole always gives me a hard time about my movement quality sometimes with my multi-directional. So I hope I did her justice. But with the acceleration work, biggest influence again would be Al Vermeil and Charlie, because that's where I first heard about the speed continuum. And again, EXOS teach the speed continuum too. And essentially the speed continuum is like if you took a linear sprint, let's just say it's usually 40 meters or 40 yards that they show. And sort of it's broken into, three fairly distinct phases, four if you include a deceleration phase. But the three distinct phases will be acceleration, transition, and absolute speed. And that acceleration phase is that kind of 0 to 10 meter section on the speed continuum. And kind of what I wanted to explain was, that the main strength qualities that contribute to acceleration would be relative maximum strength, and the kind of main sort of activities you would do to enhance that will be things like, again, the non-counter movement jumps, hops and bounds, and counter movement jumps, hop, bounds, and also medicine ball throws. And then also in the weight room, if you're utilizing some Olympic lifting stuff, you'd be kind of looking maybe a bit more at like Olympic lifts from blocks and more traditional Olympic lifting. They really kind of correlate more to that acceleration. And then just kind of teaching people the basic, wall drills and some of the harness drills we can use. And then also you saw those in the practical. So that was kind of mainly what we focused on acceleration, and teaching the basic 2-point position start. I didn't get into 3-point because, to be honest, I'm not an expert in 3 points, and I'm not an expert at all really in sprinting. It's a whole field in itself. But, I feel I have a competent enough understanding to definitely improve field-based players in acceleration. So, yeah, in acceleration, I really just wanted to break down that speed continuum, and also kind of break down the components of acceleration in terms of how you can develop the engine, if you like, for acceleration.
All right, good stuff. Next is multi-directional speed. Obviously, what a lot of us, with most of our athletes, aim for. Talk to us about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, my biggest influence would have been Lee Taft at the beginning. He was the only kind of guy that was putting stuff out that I could really find applicable, and I just thought he explained it well. I thought his rationales behind things were just very logical. And then, of course, Nicole as well has been a huge influence. Nicole Rodriguez has been a massive influence because, I mean, that's really... she said to me one day, like, that's what tickles me. She just said, like, it's movement. She's like, you guys can talk about FMS. Like, I remember, like, we were talking about the FMS and the AP, and Nicole just kind of, like, was just sitting in the corner, like, rolling her eyes, going, this is boring. Because that just doesn't get her going, where she really, multi-directional is really her type of thing. So the main areas of multi-directional that I cover were the kind of, shuffle, crossover, and the directional step, and also kind of explain this idea of the plyo step to the people that were there. And, I think there's still people out there that kind of find the plyo step a bit controversial and all that, but I think Lee is dead on with the plyo step. First of all, you don't teach it just happens. And you're not stepping backwards. Your hips never go past the frontal plane. And if you line up athletes, every goddamn athlete does it. Like, it's basic physics. You're repositioning your feet to do it. So I don't know why people still have an issue with it. And then also with directional step and crossover, I think this is the one area some people have conversations with me, is that some people say, should I cross over or should I directional step when I'm turning? And my answer would be, well, it depends. What are you doing? Now, if you were just making a purely 90-degree turn, like a cut, I would say your body's just naturally going to use a directional step or a cutting maneuver where you're going to use the inside edge of your foot. But I do see coaches teaching crossover movements into a sprint from there, and I would disagree with that personally myself. I would utilize a crossover in a defensive situation or the 45-degree cut. And again, to me, you don't teach that. The body naturally nearly uses this stuff. If somebody looks poor when they're doing multi-directional speed, it's usually because they have some sort of movement quality issue, and it's a strength issue. That's usually what it is. AP have that kind of position, power, and pattern. So, like, if they can't get into the position, is it because it's a mobility issue? If it's a pattern issue, it might be some motor control stuff. And if it's a power issue, it's usually some type of strength issue. So that's kind of what I covered mostly in the multi-directional stuff, was mainly my shuffle progression, crossover progressions, and direction step, and went through some of the wall drills and all that as well for crossover and cutting. Very influenced again by EXOS, but that's mainly what I covered.
All right. Well, in the absolute speed, which was next, you went over again the speed continuum, but I want you just to go over the absolute speed error model that you said is adapted from Nick Winkelman. Talk to us about that. Yeah,
that comes from his 0.10 second, which is a fantastic product. And it was funny because during my one, I was like, selling so much stuff for people. I was like, yes, that's Gray Cook, his movement book, buy that, or that's Secret Serious Game, buy that. And I was like, I'm not getting commissions for this. It's like, Nick Winkelman, go buy that. Because all that stuff is brilliant. It's been hugely influenced on me. And yeah, in the 0.10 second difference in his video, and that's a streaming video, online video similar to my one, he put up this air model, which I thought was excellent. In my one, I adapted a little bit too, because he put up the air model and he spoke about the solutions, but it wasn't like a PowerPoint with like the air model with the solutions there on your screen. So I kind of put a PowerPoint together like that and just spoke about it. So essentially, there's a hierarchy to the corrective model, and just essentially like one big thing is this idea of like the main thing is like if people look like they're short, if they're not like in a good posture position, essentially posture. And we want to fix that posture. Generally, when we fix posture, things that happen downstream, like overstriding, overstepping, they usually clear up. So I would have to have the PowerPoint here in front of me to really go through it properly. But I would encourage people to look at Nick's product on that too. And I just took it from there. And it's also influenced from Vern Gambetta. Essentially, like Vern has this PAL principle, so posture, arms, and leg action. So when you're looking at running and the running doesn't look well, you kind of want to think to yourself, right, posture first, and you're kind of looking at leg mechanics, backside, front side, and then also arm action too. And then also AP have I spoke about this earlier, the 3 Ps, position, pattern, and power, which essentially means mobility, motor control, and strength, if you want to term that way as well. So that's kind of how you're looking. And it's not only with absolute speed, it's also an air model for acceleration, very similar, but kind of slightly different. But essentially there was kind of 4 components, and there's a kind of a hierarchy to it as well. And also, with each sort of problem that you're seeing, there's a solution there that I went through in that kind of correction model for both absolute speed and acceleration.
All right. Well, you finish up with heart rate variability. And, I mean, at least, on traincoach.com or, on the show, we haven't talked about it in a while. And one of the things I think is I think people kind of got a little lost with it, Give us your thoughts on what you were talking about with heart rate variability, and if you've done anything differently since this came out, or since you filmed this, and maybe a little bit more on what you're doing from a monitoring perspective.
Yeah, the HRV unit that I have, it's not now I use Bioforce personally myself, but the HRV unit I have, it's a different story to that. I was doing a metabolic typing course a few years back, and the woman who gave it said that she was that she was involved in mitochondrial medicine, and she said if anybody be interested in learning more about this, speak to me to end the class. So a few of us went up to her and we spoke to her, and she told us about this Russian doctor, Dr. Michael Kuchera, and essentially Dr. Kuchera utilizes HRV to monitor the mitochondrial functioning of his patients. So essentially, HRV actually came from the Russian cosmonaut program back in the 60s to essentially monitor the health of the astronauts. Because essentially, when you go out to space, Anthony, you age extremely fast. You age something like 8 times faster in space than you do on Earth. And it's because you're further away from Earth's gravitational field and you're closer to the cosmic radiation of the sun. So that you were utilizing heart rate variability to get a snapshot of the person's autonomic nervous system, which gave a kind of an insight into the whole organism's regulatory function, essentially. And the worse it was coming out, the worse the mitochondria was functioning. Because essentially that's what aging is too. Aging is when we're losing mitochondria. So that's the whole anti-aging gig that's going around there. You're trying to hang on to your mitochondria as long as you possibly can. So the HRV unit that I have is essentially one that's trying to just see how well someone's autonomic nervous system is functioning from a more sort of general regulatory standpoint. And then also it's going to give you a snapshot into more of a cellular regulatory standpoint with the mitochondria. So I kind of use that more so in a bit of a functional medicine setting. Now, you could use it with athletes, but you kind of have to interpret the results slightly differently. If I was going with a team, I would just utilize something like a Bioforce or a Megawave, because it's a little more geared towards the athletes, and it's also easier to implement with the logistics. But HRV, I find it fascinating, the whole science of it, and I do think it's brilliant.
What else are you doing from a monitoring perspective?
With my guys, to be honest, the athletes I train are amateurs, so I actually do not utilize HRV with them because they just can't afford it in my setting. So we're very subjective, like how do you feel, get them to fill out things. And if I was in a situation where money wasn't an issue, I absolutely would use HRV. I just would. I just think there's too much validity to it from what I've seen. So I definitely would utilize it. But in my setting right now, I'm only just using subjective measures with my guys due to just monetary funding and all that type of thing. But the HRV training that I went through was absolutely excellent. I mean, the Dr. Kuchera, his whole physiology knowledge is just incredible. So again, I mean, that then refers back to training and the training process, because again, it all comes down just to stress and adaptation. The more you can understand that stuff, the better you will be as a coach when it comes to things like applying stress and the organism adapting. So I definitely think it's an area that all coaches should really read up on.
All right, good stuff. Robbie, we want to thank you for coming on today. I want to remind everybody it's the Ultimate Performance Seminar Series, and we'll have a link for that on strengthcoach.com. It's also upmentorship.com. It's a great product here, Rob. You did a great job with this. Love all the way you structured it, and I love that you have all of your practicals and lectures separated, as well as a bunch of the PDFs for the lectures. Good stuff on this, and it was great having you on, especially being such a long-time contributor to the strengthcoach.com, and which we really appreciate. Your input is always valuable. So once again, thanks for that, and thanks for coming on.
Anthony, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I just want to say a huge thanks not only to yourself but also to Mike. He's done so much for me, and I just want to say a huge thank you to Coach Boyle.
All right. All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 155 of the Strength Coach Podcast. Special thanks to Chris Poyer, Aaron McGurr, and the folks over at Perform Better. Check them out at performbetter.com for all their products and info on all of their upcoming educational seminars. Thanks to Coach Boyle and Robbie Bourke for sharing their insights and philosophies into the world of strength conditioning and performance enhancement. Elias Scarr for the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment. Check them out at resultsfitnessuniversity.com. Roy Holmes for his insights into the art of coaching with EXOS. Check them out at team teamexos.com/education. Don't forget Audible.com giving Strength Coach Podcast listeners a special offer. To download your free audiobook today, go to freebookfromant.com. That's freebookfromant.com for your free audiobook. And of course, remember you can join strengthcoach.com and have full access to the site for just $1. Unlimited access, 3 days, just $1. Once your trial is over and you become a member, you can download Coach Boyle's 2 books. And if you have a staff of 2 or more and you want to sign up as a group, we have a special membership offer for you, up to 50% off. To access that offer, go to strengthcoach.com, click the Join Now button, get started on your trial. My name's Anthony Wren, and you can reach me at strengthcoachpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again, and I'll speak to you next time.